Rome has always been a city of layers. Entire civilizations pressed into the earth beneath the cobblestones. Walk these streets and you are walking through time, which makes modernization a different kind of problem entirely. You cannot simply excavate a 2,000-year-old city because the world has decided it cannot live without being connected. Then there is New York, a city shaped by speed instead of history. Loud, a city built on velocity. Its subway carries millions of people every day through tunnels built long before anyone imagined video calls or streaming underground. Yet the expectation now is simple: connectivity everywhere. And despite how different these cities are, they are dealing with the same problem. How do you thread connections through places that were never designed to carry it?
We are not the first society or generation faced with the challenge of building a smarter infrastructure on top of the layers of existing infrastructure which might have been there for decades, if not centuries.
If you have historical buildings, they need to be protected. You can't be drilling holes in walls and different things. You need all of the regulation and all of the legal frameworks in place, but also be able to take the cost. What is your business plan? Who's going to deploy this equipment in a smart city that wasn't built for the digital technologies of today?
When on the move, we are expecting to be connected, and so many of the systems of services we rely on are based on a digital connection.
Digital infrastructure is fundamental for the quality of life, for ordinary citizens, for business and for tourists. It is extremely important that our metro line have full connectivity underground and connectivity of high quality.
Every year, millions arrive in Rome carrying the same quiet expectation that wherever they go, they will remain connected. But in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, every small hole dug for cabling can become an archaeological event. The past is always one layer down. The same can't be said for New York. You would assume a city this wired would always be connected. That may be true above ground, but in the vast network of subway tunnels that are integral to the success of the metropolis above, it's not as straightforward.
We've gotten used to it being really easy to get cellular connectivity. You look at those antennas that are on top of buildings that give you that service. But down here in these 100-year-old tunnels, they're underneath a lot of rock. They're made of concrete, and it's really complicated to build out that signal. And in New York, we're a 24/7 system. We don't stop. So getting access to those tunnels to install that equipment is really complicated.
In New York, shutting down every single subway line to install network infrastructure would create disruption on a massive scale. For both cities, the need for connectivity was never in doubt. The question was whether anyone could actually build it. To tackle projects this complex, both turned to Boldyn Networks. Experts in threading invisible infrastructure and wireless solutions through some of the world's busiest and most complex environments. From hundreds of major venues and stadiums to private networks across airports and ports. And through transit systems and cities, higher education campuses, manufacturing and mining locations.
New York is certainly a unique environment, especially the subway system. It's one of the largest and oldest subway systems in the world, and it's also critical to how New Yorkers move around the city 24/7. There's probably no greater example of a challenging project as deploying a wireless network in the underground New York subway system. You know, it's very challenging from an access standpoint. Safety is obviously always very important. So, we're accessing tunnels underground in dark conditions late at night to install a complicated system. So it's a very complex project. From a technical architecture perspective, every tunnel segment, every station is different. So there's a unique engineering effort that has to happen to ensure we have the right coverage and the right propagation within every part of the individual network.
E era ovvio sin dall'inizio che la grande difficoltà per sviluppare infrastrutture a Roma sarebbero stati gli scavi soprattutto, perché Roma ha una peculiarità, fare qualunque piccolo buco nel pavimento della città significa la possibilità di trovare delle rovine storiche o comunque dei reperti che sono importanti non solo per Roma ma per l'umanità. La metropolitana è un polmone assolutamente vitale per la città. Noi eravamo coscienti di avere la possibilità di lavorare pochissime ore per notte, quindi implica una enorme attività di preparazione, di pianificazione e non c'è possibilità di errore.
If you think about space and utilization and where you can install equipment, every station has limited space. There's limited space within the tunnels to install equipment. In terms of ease of access to install the system and maintain it, the New York subway doesn't shut down at night. Deploying these systems and maintaining them in a fashion that has the least amount of disruption to passengers is really, really important.
The challenge for Boldyn was finding a way to install long-term digital infrastructure while keeping closures, delays, and repeated construction work to a minimum. The solution, the neutral host. For years, mobile operators largely built their own infrastructure separately from one another. Different equipment, different cabling, different systems running through the same spaces. But in dense cities, especially underground, that approach becomes difficult to sustain. That's where the neutral host comes in. The idea is surprisingly simple. Instead of every MNO, mobile network operators, building separate infrastructure, multiple operators connect to the same shared system. A far more sustainable, efficient approach and enabling consistent network performance. Because rebuilding the same infrastructure multiple times would not only be costly and disruptive, but in some locations it would be almost impossible.
The interesting thing about the neutral host model is that it's actually a win-win for everybody. The important thing in neutral host is the collaboration between the partner, whether that be the City of Rome or a transit organization like the MTA in New York, and the MNOs themselves. The idea is that we invest a huge amount of money, but we only do it once and everybody wins. So the MNOs are able to connect for their customers at a fraction of the cost that it would cost them to do themselves. And the city or the transit organization is able to provide that cutting edge connectivities that their users and inhabitants are looking for.
So instead of having 2, 3, 4 different wireless networks, we really just need one network that can provide that connectivity. And this makes a ton of sense in really every example, but in particular for a location like the New York subway system.
There was connection, of course, but not as much as we would have liked and not as much as was needed. For instance, on the metro, there was no possibility to have to make a call or to download a video, or in many areas, especially where too crowded, it was very difficult to find connection. So we are really making a bold transition toward a real smart city, and the digital infrastructure is fundamental, because if you don't have the digital infrastructure, you cannot make all these services going on through the old infrastructure. So connectivity is a basis for a smart city.
This is a really important part of our system modernization that we're in the midst of. We've got a 100-year-old system, but it's got to adapt and evolve over time. And we know that our 4 million subway riders need and want continuous cellular service all the way throughout the system, through those 418 miles of underground tunnels that we have. And that's what our partnership with Boldyn is enabling us to do.
The work is still ongoing, but projects like these are beginning to change how large cities think about connectivity. not as something separate from infrastructure, but as part of it.
When we turned up the first tunnel segment on the 42nd Street shuttle, and that one connects Times Square with Grand Central Station, so it's a highly trafficked route, over 36 million people a year. It was a great sense of accomplishment to see how we impacted everybody that rides that segment. And I think the places you get the most reward in life are the ones that are the hardest projects to deploy and the ones where you had the most challenging goals. And certainly that holds true for our team in this example, where we can see the impact that we're having on commuters and riders on the transit system.
Particolarmente importante per me è stata l'esperienza di lavorare in Italia e a Roma. Io ho lavorato più di 20 anni all'estero, nelle maggiori città del mondo, e sono tornato a Roma con lo spirito di chi voleva fare qualcosa per il proprio paese, quindi è stato particolarmente sfidante e eccitante poter fare la più grande infrastruttura di Smart City che si fosse mai immaginata in Italia e anche in Europa. Sicuramente insieme a tutti i miei colleghi essere protagonista di un cambio così importante nella modernizzazione di una delle città più antiche del mondo sicuramente mi ha reso orgoglioso.
Millions of people move through Rome and New York every day, connected, without thinking about it. For most, that seamless experience begins and ends with a bar of signal on a screen. Most people will never see the infrastructure behind it. They will not think about the tunnels, the engineering, or the planning required to keep them connected above and underground. That seamless experience relies on teams of engineers, architects and technicians working behind the scenes to keep entire cities linked. But the invisibility is not a side effect. For the people who built it, it was always the goal.